We're reading every Spider-Man ever, and this is Amazing Spider-Man issue 45. Spider-Man's arm is still in a sling and he's hunting for the lizard, and he's worried because sure, he can beat up random goons with one arm, but can he also fight a scientist turned evil lizard with one arm? And speaking of that very lizard, he's sneaking into a lab and the home of Curt Connors, unaware that he is also Curt Connors. He's looking for a way to turn lizards into even bigger lizards and raise a lizard army, even though that was nothing close to what Doc Connors was working on. But even though he finds the doctor's notes, the lizard doesn't understand science, and so he trashes the place and leaves. The next morning at the Daily Bugle, Frederick Foswell is keen to follow Peter Parker to discover how he's able to get so many Spider-Man pictures, but he's told to investigate the lizard instead, so that plot point is kicked down the road for a later issue. We're also reminded that Betty and Ned are getting married as they plan it on their coffee break. Meanwhile and elsewhere, Peter Parker is worried that if he appears out in public with a damaged arm, people will connect him to Spider-Man. But any other option is too painful, so he bites the bullet and lies, claiming to have had a motorbike accident. Flash instantly connects the two injured arms, but only to mock Peter Parker, because there's no way that puny Parker could be Spider-Man. And Harry invites Peter out to a party that Gwen Stacy is hosting. Why doesn't she invite Peter out herself? Well, he hasn't exactly been around since Mary Jane arrived on the scene. And that's true, Peter thinks, but he just can't get Gwen out of his mind. Later, and as Spider-Man, Peter swings around the city in search of his scaly enemy. The rooftops and the sewers reveal nothing, but a poster at the zoo about the world's largest reptile collection, located in Philadelphia, gives him all the answers he needs. He finds and confronts the lizard at the train yards, and just as Spidey seems to be getting the upper hand, the lizard releases a menagerie of lizards and commands them to kill Spider-Man. Elsewhere, Mary Jane and her aunt pop around to Peter's house with an offering of soup, but find him gone. Just where could that wallflower be? The answer is using a crocodile as a flail to keep snakes and other crocs at bay. When the lizards abruptly stop attacking, Spider-Man realizes that the train to Philadelphia is leaving, and he leaps on board and brings the fight to the lizard. The train also gives him an idea. He mocks and enrages the lizard once more, just like he successfully did last issue, and leads the villain down the train to a specific carriage. Once inside the carriage, Spider-Man keeps on the offensive, even with just one arm, in the hope that the lizard doesn't realize where he is too early. Finally, in close quarters, the lizard gets a good swing of his tail and hits Spidey, but the attack is feeble, and Lizard falls down unconscious. You see, they're inside the freezer car, and famously cold-blooded reptiles are unable to survive in that temperature. To ensure that Doc Connors doesn't die, Spidey wraps him up in webbing and then swings him to his lab. As the lizard warms, Spider-Man races to create a cure, trying to ignore Martha Connors and her son banging on the door outside. The lizard begins to stir, and Spidey only has one shot, and so he feeds the solution to the lizard and hopes that it works. Hopes that it's a man who breaks free of the webbing and not a lizard. From outside, Martha and Billy hear Spider-Man bidding them inside, that there's someone there who would like to see them, and we learn that the formula did work, and that the Connors family are reunited. As he heads home, Peter is deep in thought, interrupted by Harry and Mary Jane pulling up alongside him. They end up leaving him to his thoughts, and Peter begins to sour on MJ, who only seemed to care that she had someone to drive her around. How could he love someone so shallow? He also worries about paying for May's holiday, and worries that his sling will worry May upon her return, and worries that he should be studying instead of swinging around. In an empty room, he yells that all his problems are caused by Spider-Man, and he throws his costume across the room in anger and sits down on the bed to ponder. Why does he even do something that makes him so miserable? Elsewhere and happier, Doc Connors wishes that he could repay Spider-Man in some way. But how could they possibly help someone so powerful and so self-sufficient? A person like Spider-Man probably has everything a man could want. Thanks for watching, subscribe for the next issue, and while we wait for that, here's a fun fact about this one. In this issue is another sign that Stan Lee is writing too many comic books at this time, as he gets the Scorpion and the Lizard confused. Apparently, it's the Scorpion that broke into the lab and destroyed it, despite him appearing nowhere in the comic.